مشاهدينا مرحبا بكم في حوارات السياق. ترفض الدول الأجنبية المتحالفة مع النيجر الاعتراف بالحكومة العسكرية الجديدة، وقرر الاتحاد الأوروبي وفرنسا وقف الدعم المالي المقدم للنيجر، وهددت الولايات المتحدة بفعل الشيء نفسه. كما علق الاتحاد الأوروبي جميع إجراءات التعاون في مجال الأمن لأجل غير مسمى وبأثر فوري بعد الانقلاب. عموما للمزيد من المتابعة تنضم إلينا جينيفيف جويتزينجر، وهي الصحفية ورئيسة وكالة imagge المتخصصة في الاستراتيجية السياسية. أستاذة جينيفيف، مرحبا بك معنا.
Thank you very much.
ما الذي حدث بالضبط في النيجر مع شرح خارطة الولاءات وكيف أثرت على الأحداث؟
I think in Niger it's the coup de trop, the coup too much, a coup too much after Burkina Faso, after Mali, after Guinea. And in Niger there is no real reason. Coup d'etat, of course, are never legitimate, but this one, not legitimate at all, because sometimes you can have some reasons that make them popular. I mean, bad governance, corruption, of course, in the Sahel, the failure to fight against terrorism and against armed groups. But in Niger, even if it's a very poor country, even if everything is not perfect, the reasons are not the same. Here you had someone, at the head of a president's guard, who didn't want to be demitted. And so he didn't want to be demitted, so he made a coup against the president. Mohamed Bazoum was elected 2 years ago. He tried his best, really. He was putting great energy into saving his country from terrorism, and he had some better results than his neighbors, than Mali and Burkina Faso, for instance. So his fall is obviously unacceptable for the countries of the region and for all the elected presidents of the region, because there is a risk of contagion and a sort of a kind of domino game. After him, it can be me. You understand? Why not? If there are no more rules, if everyone can do anything he wants, so nobody can feel now totally safe.
عفوا، وكأنك أخبرتني أن الانقلاب مبرر أو أن هناك انقلاب مبرر.
No, I think no coup is justified. It can be justified, but sometimes you can explain a coup because of really no results, because really a very high level of corruption. But that was not the case. And his democratic elected president only 2 years ago. So really, I can't see anything that could explain this coup. And that explains the really very, very, very firm reaction of the ECOWAS, which is the regional organization. It gave 7 days, really an ultimatum, 7 days, and the threat of a military intervention, 7 days given to negotiation. So for Western presence in Niger, especially French and American presence, the stakes are very huge. Niger is the last ally of the Westerners in the Sahel. Paris keeps 1,500 soldiers after ending the Barkhane operation and leaving Mali under pressure from the Bamako junta.
عند هذه المرحلة هل يمكن إعادة عقارب الساعة إلى ما قبل الانقلاب وإعادة الرئيس إلى منصبه؟
Yes, I think, because the ECOWAS seems to be really determined not to let the coup succeed. And to send mediators, something mediation, but they really threatens to send the army. And for instance, the Nigerian army is very powerful, and the new Nigerian president seems to be very determined. The coup doesn't seem really prepared. Well, of course, it happened during the St. Petersburg summit, where you had 50 African countries together with Russia, but I think Russia is not behind the coup. Of course, Russia is trying to recover, to take advantage of it. And if it can take advantage of it, it will do. It will take advantage of it. But it's not behind the coup. I don't think so. We also the pictures of Russian flags behind on the pictures yesterday in the streets of Niamey. So it can recover the coup, but it's not behind. It's really a personal affair, you know? It's really the guard who doesn't want to be demitted, that's all.
كيف ستؤثر الإجراءات الأوروبية والتحذيرات الأمريكية على انقلاب النيجر؟ هل يمكن أن يتراجع قادة المجلس الجديد؟
Yes, France decided to suspend its development aid and Germany did the same. But the most significant measures are the African measures, economic blockade and threat of the use of force if President Bazoum doesn't regain power in a week, which is very short. I told you about President Tinubu, the new president of Nigeria. He's now at the head of ECOWAS. It's a rotating presidency, ECOWAS, and he's really absolutely determined to stop the game. So Nigeria is a neighbor of Niger, and he had this word, I tell you the words, I read them. It's not a longer time to send signals. It's now time for action. And I think these are not only words. So a military operation is not excluded from Nigeria and Chad. Maybe it could be with French and American support. So yes, they can back down. They don't seem so sure of themselves. They are trying to activate anti-French feelings among parts of the population. They say that the foreign minister, which is now acting as prime minister, authorized French shots to deliver President Bazoum. But, you know, the story is not finished. We are in a part of a coup. It's really not a coup. Not a succeeded coup by the time.
لماذا يتم انتقاد فرنسا؟ هل هناك شعور عدائي لها في مستعمراتها السابقة؟
Yes, you have a strong what we call sentiment anti-Français, anti-French feeling in French-speaking African countries, especially in the Sahel, because of colonization, of course, but more precisely because of Kadhafi and because of Barkhane in Mali or in the Sahel, and not very good results. And so the people ask them, well, such strong people, French people, they come to help us, and the results are not there, and we don't want to see them again. And so they turn them to Russia. And you have this feeling, this anti-French feeling.
هل ستسمح فرنسا والدول الغربية بأن يتحول مخزون اليورانيوم الهائل في النيجر إلى روسيا؟
I think it's impossible because it's the last lie in the Sahel, so it's impossible. Not because of uranium. There is a big fantasy about uranium. Uranium is not so important today. For instance, in France, Nigerian uranium represents only 2,000 tons. Every year, which is less than 20% of its importations, with 10 years reserves. So when people think it's because of uranium, it's not so true, because France could remain 50 years without importation from Niger. So it's more a question of policy, a question of influence, and also a question of safety, of security, but not really economic. I think it will be, well, the legitimacy to act belongs to the African countries, to the ECOWAS, not to France. Even one putschist said today that his foreign minister asked France to intervene. But I think there is such a big feeling, an anti-French feeling, that France can intervene alone, but it can help, and American can help with intelligence, with such things. But if there is a military intervention, it would be, I think, a Nigerian intervention or a Chadian intervention, not a French one and not an American one. But you can support, you can help.
لماذا تتكرر الانقلابات في دول الساحل؟
Yeah, it's not the only country affected by coup. You have in Western Africa some countries which are affected by coup and some others which are not. And we don't really know why. Maybe it's historical factors, but it's hard to explain. Senegal, you have no coup. Ivory Coast, you had one coup in their story, in the history. Niger, you have civil coup. Burkina, you have coup. Mali, you have coup. It's not. It's hard to understand. I have no explanation, in fact. There is something, the countries where you have had many coups were the countries which were historically very close to Russia. At the time of communism, I mean, you know, after the independence, you had some country close to Russia. That was Burkina Faso, Mali, even Guinea. And in these countries, you have had many coups. The countries close of the Western had less coups historically, but I can't explain it. But maybe the ideology is not the same.
هل يمكن أن تستخدم روسيا اتساع رقعة نفوذها في إفريقيا كوسيلة للضغط على دول أوروبا وأمريكا؟
To pressure, I don't think so. I think it can use it to have more allies at the United Nations, especially now with the Ukrainian war. So it needs allies, really, to show the world that Russia is not alone in this fight against Ukraine. So it's important to have some support. It had really one country supporting him, which is Mali. It's the only African country which voted for Russia and for the invasion of Ukraine. When he was in St. Petersburg, Captain Traoré from Burkina Faso told he's now supporting the aggression of Ukraine. If tomorrow Niger is in the same mood, it will be another ally. So, of course, Russia needs a ally in this war. It's more that this. It's not pressure. It's allies. It's influence. It's support. It's such things.
هناك موضوع آخر ربما بذات الأهمية، تحديدا ملف الهجرة والسلاح. كيف سينعكس الانقلاب العسكري في النيجر على الدول المنخرطة جغرافيا مع هذه البلاد؟
Yeah, of course. Weapon and immigrations are the main huge consequences on Arab countries, of course, but the consequences are on the countries, for the countries affected by the coup. These countries are generally the most impacted by their own coup when they live under a military transition regime. Because a military regime means isolation, you know, they are isolated. MINUSMA is leaving after Barkhane, so they are alone to fight against terrorism. And military transition don't have very good results in the fight against terrorism. So people pay the heavy price and they immigrate and they are obliged to leave their home and they are sometimes obliged to leave their countries. And the neighboring states, yes, Arabic states, you're right, but also African states welcome these populations with risks for their own stability. And that's the real problem. Ivory Coast, for instance, is opening 2 new refugee camps for Burkinabe. So that's also the target of what's happening now by the days which are coming in Niger. But this country remains stable, that you don't have more immigration from Niger in the neighboring countries.
أستاذة جينيفيف جويتزينجر، شكرا جزيلا لك للمشاركة معنا في حوارات السياق.
Thank you.
مشاهدينا، شكرا على طيب المتابعة. إلى الملتقى.